Hey, happy Tuesday. Rob Mazak here. I am a psychic medium. I do a lot of podcasts and I mix it up with metaphysical, spiritual, real world, just kind of mash it up sometimes. And I don't do any kind of scripted talks. I don't like to read it. It sounds like I'm a robot and it's really not all that great, in my opinion. Now, I'll do that if I'm doing little short videos, perhaps, motivational things or something with music on it. But nope, here we are going to go off the cuff and I feel a lot more comfortable doing it that way. Today, I had this really interesting epiphany, I guess is the right word to say. Something that just motivated the snot out of me. And I believe the universe really wants to speak to us or really wants to help us. And I use the word universe, you know, loosely, I guess. It could be spirit guide, ascended masters, God, angels, whatever you believe is guiding you from the other side. So the universe is kind of a universal term. Yeah, no pun intended. Of course, it was intended. Anyway, I believe that we are always getting messages every second of our day, and most of the time we don't pay attention or we don't pick up on it, and we're really missing out when we do that. And today I got this crazy epiphany, like I said, and I've probably heard this before multiple times. But sometimes just because you get the message doesn't mean you're necessarily ready to hear it in its full glory, if you will. I mean, if you look at addicts that turn their life around, and 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 you, if you look at their story, many times they're going through rehab and trying and trying and trying, and and even being forced to at times to work on that sobriety. But it really happens, when it really happens, is when they are absolutely ready. When they're sick and tired of being sick and tired and they are just ready to do something about it. And that's just one example. I mean, that's with most everything in life. You have to be ready. The student has to be ready for when the master shows up, if you will. And today I heard something through a series of events, which we'll talk about, that I know I've heard before, and I just kind of played it off and really didn't take it all that serious. So, a little bit about me. I am an exercise junkie. That's my addiction. Speaking of addictions, I really can't get enough of it. But over the last, I don't know, I want to say several months, I've just kind of hit this really weird wall. I'm 63, but I am in really good shape. We can always be in better shape, and I want to be in better shape. But for a 63-year-old, pretty doggone good. And I have just kind of reached this place where I'm tired. I don't have energy. I'm gaining weight just all of a sudden, and I'm not doing anything different. Well, that could be part of the problem too, I guess, right? But it's just all these weird things that are happening to me, and I'm like, I just really couldn't wrap my head around it. And so I was really struggling with that, and trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And so today I had this conversation with my wife, and so we do it by phone a lot because I'm deployed military here. You can see behind me I'm staying in a little cabin, temporary place for now. But I've been down here. I've been down the border operations for almost a year now, and I'm not home a lot. I do get home most weekends recently. I'm close enough to do that now, and a few days a month they give us some leave time. Anyway, so we talk on the phone a lot, and she called me today, and she was talking about some womanly issues, if you will, and more or less along the lines of what I remember most was about hormones and estrogen and things like that. And she's much younger than me, but still, you know, that midlife time, if you will. comes around for some women earlier than others. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but anyway, that's the way the conversation was going. And she was talking about, different supplements and things like that, and what might help her with some of those issues. And I kind of I was talking to her about the fact that I'm looking at all the symptoms of low testosterone, right? And they all seem to match what I was just trying to explain before. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing some of those things, but classic stuff. And the thing is, though, that every time I've done lab draws, uh, gotten panels done, by the lab and looked at all my different specifics and hormones and values and all that. I do it quite often because I am in an asthma study, which I go and get that done every month and at least once a year for the military side and also the VA. And I can tell you that my testosterone has always been normal, in the normal range, and closer to the higher end of that scale. And based on who I am, I'm more like an 18-year-old when it comes to testosterone, and we'll leave it at that. And so I was really confused. And so after our conversation with my wife, I started looking at different ways to test for testosterone, maybe outside of the systems that I'm in, maybe perhaps getting on hormone replacement therapy, because, let's just face it, nobody wants to get old and slow and fat. Nobody does, right? Especially when you've been able to eat anything you want, exercise all day long without any effect, play soccer all the time. There was, not that long ago, I was playing, several games a day on the weekends of soccer. And so, you know, just kind of all of a sudden hit the wall. And I was really kind of confused. Anyway, I started looking at these things. I was looking at, a lot of different home kits and all these different things and prices and things that I could possibly try. Something just led me, I heard the voice, right? So as a psychic and a medium, there's the voice. Everybody gets information differently, but it all happens in my mind. It doesn't happen externally like some psychics and mediums do. I don't see spirits like in front of me sitting on my bed or whatever. That all happens in my mind. And so I've learned to distinguish between my own thoughts and those that are coming from outside of me. And I heard the voice say that I needed to look at the microplastics discussions that have been going around the internet. And let me explain what I mean by that. Specifically, things that are contained in plastic bottles. For example, the really big one is bottled water, right? And most drinks now come in either, aluminum cans or plastic bottles. And what happens a lot of times is that some of those chemicals that the plastics are made out of, I think it's called BPH or BPA or something of the sort. It's a fancy acronym for a really long name. I don't remember it right off the top of my head, but it's not entirely important. And if you are consuming things from plastic bottles, you can absorb or consume some of these chemicals that are really not good for you. And especially if the fluid or the contents of that plastic bottle have been in there a while. And even more so if they've been subject to like sitting out in the sun, the heat in your car, things like that. And so it's just all of a sudden this light bulb came on, right? Because the definition or the explanation of some of those outcomes, some of the effects of consuming this BPA. Sorry, I don't have enough information to really, expound on that. but it was enough to drive me in the right direction. So I think that's the important part. But these BPAs, these chemicals, will, in this particular article, it talked about the fact that these little molecules of BPA will get into your system, and it will start latching on to the receptors of estrogen, or where estrogen is supposed to attach to do its thing, right? And it just hit me like a brick. I'm like, oh my gosh. So let me wind back up a little bit. Been on mission with the military for a while. Was down in farther south than I was before in a camp, tents, the whole 9 yards. And the water pallets that we had there for the soldiers and for the camp sat outside. And down south in Texas this last summer, it was like the devil's anus came out. It was so damn hot. And even when you cover those things, even when you cover the water pallets, the heat is just incredible. And even more so, I like to keep water in my vehicles, in my truck. I mean, if you go in my truck, I got water bottles lying down all four doors of my truck. I don't know why I started that, but it's just this habit I have. And so once again, if you're sitting in South Texas, 100+ degree weather every day, all summer, your truck is going to be way more than 100. And so you're basically allowing that fluid, those chemicals, to leach out of that plastic into the water, right? So apparently I have been consuming these types of chemicals then for almost a year now, because nobody really trusted the camp water, even though it was from the city. And everybody, including myself, used the bottled water. And when we moved to this new temporary place and I closed that camp down, guess what? I brought back about 10 cases of that water, just, and put it in my room. Here we are in a hunting lodge, and I'm thinking, yeah, the water can't possibly be all that great here, right? Out in the middle of nowhere, and it's probably laden with crazy minerals or something. And so guess what water I've been using, right? The same water that's been leaching this chemical all summer long is now sitting in my room, and I've been using it still for the last couple of months. And even though the story that I read didn't talk about the fact that testosterone gets problematic with this chemical, that little voice, right, said, hey, you know what? This was the really big message. It was the same message I've heard from lots of motivational speakers. Even I've said it many times, that everything we need is within us. We don't need anything necessarily external. I mean, obviously we got to eat, things like that. You kind of get my point. But what we need, we have. And even in the Bible, for example, it talks about being your own physician. I think it means something similar. So here I am putting all the pieces together that I have been consuming this particular type of chemical, at least this one. And the little voice pops in, like I said, and they were saying, I say they, the message was that there's a lot of toxins in your body that you're consuming, especially this one, this BPA, that is causing and holding up the process of all the things you have within you to do what your body needs to do. In this particular message, especially testosterone and metabolism and all that. And the visual they were giving me was that the testosterone couldn't latch on to particular molecules or whatever it does. I mean, I've probably learned it 100 times, but I couldn't repeat it now. that whole cycle. But these toxins were not allowing the testosterone that I have in my body to actually do what it's supposed to do. And it's just really, it blew my mind for one thing, but it also motivated me like nobody's business. And so the mantra that was also introduced to me was that maybe it's not so much that you need to affirm that you have all this testosterone and all this metabolism and all these things when all you're asking to do is increase the amount of testosterone that's floating around your body that can't attach and do anything, and it ends up going into the toilet. I often wonder why sometimes when I would take a pee, it just smelled like crazy. I'm like, this is something that's weird. And it all started to make sense. I am actually eliminating things that I need. And the only thing that would happen is with me going to get hormone replacement therapy would be that I would be just putting more testosterone in my body, for example, that can't do anything. It can't hitch a ride on the cells that it needs to or do whatever it needs to do. And so the message became really clear. Sometimes it's not what we need to ask for, but what we need to not allow to happen with our body, things that we don't want. And so I instantly started switching my affirmations because every day, all the time, I'm talking about being young, and being energetic and having high metabolism, high testosterone, on and on and on. And I probably do have all that. It's probably has increased because of those affirmations and in training my mind to create that. But guess what? It's not going to do any good if all it's doing is floating around my body and very little of it's getting through. Obviously, some of it is because I can still, I can go to the gym and lift the house and it's not a problem. But when you start gaining fat for no reason, it's like, well, you used to being 170 pounds for the last basically 20 years or more, and all of a sudden, just like overnight, it just, I guess my body hit the wall. It's like, you need a message. And so here I am. And as soon as I started changing my affirmations for what I did not want and what I wanted to happen instead, that I wanted the cycle, the testosterone and all the hormones, the to give them the ability to hitch a ride on whatever they needed to affect the cycles that they need to affect, and 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 allow my body to do what it should be doing, and to remove all the toxins in my body that don't belong. Obviously, that some of them take longer, heavy metals, things like that. But these are the kind of shifts I made today, and it was amazing. It's like getting this realization, changing my mantra, changing my affirmations, changing what I was telling my body, because every cell in your body hears what you say, it hears what you think, and it will do what you command it to do, whether you're doing it on purpose or subconsciously. We'll swing around back to that in a second. But so it's like my body responded instantly. As soon as I was done with work, which was, probably a few hours later, I really, I could not wait to go out and run, or I don't run so much. I do for soccer, but power walk. I just could not wait to get out the door and go change and hit the track around the camp here. And it's like I felt like I was 20 again, that quick. And I I can't wait to see and track my progress and continue this mantra and this mindset and see how it goes. And because I've been told many times also in these messages I get. That it's not really what I'm eating, it's how you eat. I guess I didn't understand that, but it kind of makes sense. It's like, I think that really is kind of a deeper message, that it's how my body is eating it, how my body is processing it. And apparently it wasn't, or isn't. Well, it is now, doggone it. I've affirmed that. And I've changed and shifted that thought pattern to allow the hormones to get into where they need to and do what they need to do and affect the change that I'm looking for specifically, because I love to work out, I love to play soccer, I love to do all those things, and I feel like a sluggish old dude, or I was. But even now, after power walking 6 miles, it seemed like it wasn't enough. I was like, oh, I'd love to do more, but I wanted to come and talk about this, and I had to meet some of my soldiers to talk about some things. So, and I plan on getting to bed here fairly early, and we're going to be up at it again at 5 o'clock. And I've been having a hard time doing that. But it is amazing what happens when opportunity knocks on your door and you're ready to answer the door and you're ready to receive that opportunity. And there's a lot of other examples I could give you in my life, but this one is really prevalent for me. And I found it just completely amazing that you can shift your health, your mentality, your everything that quickly, and feel the effects so fast. Now, don't get me wrong. If I switch back to all my old mentality, my old thinking, yeah, it's just going to go back. So you have to work at it. You have to keep that up, because, like I said, your cells, they are listening. If you ever want to get scientific proof of that, experimentation and documentation, you go read the book by Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief. And let me tell you, cells do respond, and they will respond to what you say, what you think. And here's the real problem. So we're going to go into a little philosophical thing. I got about 8 minutes on this particular program. So our mind is made up of two basic parts. I mean, lots of them, but for simplicity, there's two basic parts of your mind. There's your conscious mind, and then there's your subconscious mind, or your unconscious mind. The unconscious, subconscious is the part that you don't necessarily have access to, direct access to. And this is where the subconscious is where everything that's ever happened to you, all your experiences, all your learning, where you grew up, all the bad things, good things, relationships, everything is wound up in your subconscious. You learn to walk, you learn to talk, you learn to drive. All these things have become programs. They've been wound up into this CD, if you will, this DVD that plays every day. And if you don't change it, if you don't reprogram it, which takes time, generally, this was a pretty quick shift, if you ask me today, but it takes time. And the problem is, if you don't change that programming, 95% or better of what you did yesterday, last week, a year ago, 10 years ago, is just repeating over and over again. And you wonder why you don't get anywhere, why you meet the same stupid men or the same stupid women. You just don't understand how you can't get the right jobs, all these things. And it's like, it's because your subconscious it runs your life. If you don't get a hold of it, it will continue to do that. I mean, you can also go and look at Joe Dispenza's stuff. I call him the king of meditation, but he has a lot of scientific data to back up his stuff as well. And he'll tell you that the reason our life is the same as it was yesterday is because 95% of our thoughts are the same as they were yesterday. And so what's left? 5% is our subconscious, right? Our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is what I'm using right now. I can direct it. I can use it to help program my subconscious mind on purpose. I can use it to make decisions. And it feels like it's in charge, but it's not necessarily. I mean, you can help use it to reprogram yourself and focus on things and learning and things like that. But it's like that little chihuahua that barks, right? I got one of those little puppies with the big old ears, right? And it's just a little 10-pound dog, but oh my gosh, you think that she is a 100-pound mastiff or something. And that's kind of what the conscious mind is. It thinks it's in charge, but it's really not. And and so, I mean, as an example, you're so programmed to do things. I mean, how many times have you driven to work or driven to school or driven anywhere, and you don't even remember the trip? It's because your subconscious mind has that under control. So let's do this a little bit more on purpose, right? Let's take control of what it is that we want ourselves to hear, what we want our body to respond to, what we want our life to become. Because if we just allow it to keep happening, you're going to get old and fat and slow, like I was beginning to do, right? And so, nobody wants that. Everybody wants something, some dream, some goal, some idea, and they just don't understand why it's not changing. You have to figure out how to talk to yourself, how to affirm to yourself, how to reprogram yourself. There's a lot of ways to do that. I mean, we can talk about that another time. I've talked about it in other podcasts. I do hypnosis as well, and that's a really good way to do that. But one really cool way to do it, Bruce Lipton, his idea, right? The one that talked about the biology of belief. He also does some kind of interesting hypnosis technique, which I never learned. But he said if you go to sleep at night with something that is reprogramming material, affirmations or whatever, when you go to sleep, guess what happens? Your conscious mind gets turned off. Your subconscious mind gets it directly because there's no buffer, there's no barrier. Everything that you subject yourself to in life goes straight to the subconscious and affects it. Music, friends, everything, right? There's no firewall, straight in. So at night you can take advantage of that. Put some headphones in your ears, right? And I went even farther than that, than just to find something out there that was already pre-programmed. I took the time to program or record myself telling me what I wanted to be, what I didn't want to have, all that stuff. And so I did a little 15-minute thing, put it in 4 blocks with some music behind it, boom. And it is amazing what happens when your subconscious mind gets information like that from yourself that is unobstructed because your conscious mind is turned off. Anyway, I just wanted to share this. I thought it was really cool that even though we've heard messages 100 times sometimes, every now and then somebody will say it just right, or you'll read something that just pings you. And people learn to trust it. Learn to trust your intuition, your gut feeling, and just go with it because it can really change your life. And in this case, my goal is to drop back down to that 170, right, and get back to where I need to be. And so I just thought it was really cool. I wanted to share. And so as always, I like to hear what you guys have to say about these things. On my website, you can find my contact page. You can reach out to me, email me, text me, whatever. There's contacts, all kind of contacts on there. Ways to contact me, rather. And that website is lifebymazak.com. LIFEBYMAZAK.com. Hit me up. Tell me how you feel about this, and perhaps we can work together on some other things. So I will talk to you guys later, hopefully. But you will hear from me again. Stay strong and live your life.